Fox 5 and Hot 97 present Street Soldiers with Lisa Evers.
I'm so glad you're joining us for this special episode of Street Soldiers on modern love. For this show, think of us as love soldiers. We're taking a look at what it takes to find and enjoy long-term love, and we're asking just how possible it really is in a day and age when so many options are only a swipe away on our phones. No matter how challenging, that quest for the love of a lifetime is still a goal for many. Social media and dating apps have changed the social landscape of finding love. There's so many options, some people get stuck in a continual grass is greener on the other side search, never finding that person who is their one and only. TikTok content creator and commentator Joe Stone says there's often too much emphasis on superficial qualities instead of what really counts.
You have people speed dating instead of taking the time to actually get to know each other and focusing on, how much money they make, how tall they are, how great they look, instead of the things that actually build a long-lasting relationship and hopefully a marriage.
Content creator Ling Lawson, who now works with her husband on their brand, Ling and Lamb, says she was on many dating apps and got so fed up she deleted all the accounts. Weeks later, when she was living her life and not looking, she met her husband, who told her on their first date that he wanted to marry her.
I think it's ultimately about working on you, getting to be your best self, and then being confident in getting out there.
Sunny Sekhan, known as Sunny the Love Coach, is author of the book Awaken the Love Within. He advises singles looking for long-term relationships to focus on themselves first, then look beyond the facades to find out who they're really dealing with.
If you want a deeper, long-lasting relationship, you got to go deeper within that connection. You got to start looking into their values, who they are as a person, what drives them, what excites them. How can you create a beautiful life with this person?
Let's take this to our panel and find out what they have to say. Joining us for this conversation is Ling Lawson. She's with Ling and Lamb. That's her brand with her husband. She is a content creator, very popular. Ling, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
We appreciate it. Also joining us from London, we're going everywhere for the best experts here, I'm telling you. Sunny Sekhan. He's known as Sunny the Love Coach on Instagram. He's also an author, and he is an expert matchmaker at putting together not just high-profile couples, but couples that are really serious about this business of love. Sunny, thank you so much for joining us.
Grateful to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Also joining us once again, Joe Stone, content creator, commentator. You see him all across social media, hilarious TikTok videos, Instagram. He's everywhere. And also, just commentating on social issues and some of the celebrity dramas that we see unfolding. Joe, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for inviting me.
Okay. Now, Joe, you are up on all of the celebrity issues, all of these relationships. I want to ask you, do you believe that modern love is any different from our parents' or grandparents' generation?
I think it is. I think that love in general has always been based on proximity, right? Who you have access to. Usually, in most cases, before the social media age, you had people like usually marrying that high school sweetheart. They stay together, 10, 20 years, be together forever. And that was the story, right? Or the person you went to church with, or the person you went to college with. That is usually where you met your mate. And now you have it where you have a plethora of choices. You can hop on any app, and it's just like any delivery service. You can swipe, find the person that you want, find the people that you want, any size, flavor, whatever in your location. So it really doesn't get any more convenient. But I think with that, we've kind of gotten disposable as well, where, we can meet 20 people, 30 people, 40 people, 50 people, and you don't spend the time that it takes to actually get to know any one person. And that's, I think, the problem that people are dealing with is just so many options.
Ling, what about for women? Because a lot of times they'll be like, set your standards really high. What do you see happening?
Yeah, I mean, definitely, it was definitely the case for me before I got married to my amazing husband. I was on the dating apps and it felt absolutely hopeless. A lot of people just looking for hookups, like you said, wanting to keep your standards high, but also feeling like, okay, maybe I need to revisit the list because maybe it's too high. But I just kept true to who I was. I know my worth and my value and stick it through. And I knew eventually it will work out. For me, it happened when I wasn't looking. So, yeah.
We'll hear more about your journey to get to that point. Sunny, with the couples, with the individuals that you coach and that you counsel and that you encourage, what do you see happening? Because this is what a lot of people keep saying over and over again. It's kind of, we've turned into this digital and disposable society, and if people don't really take the time to get to know whether somebody might be really good for them.
Absolutely. I think it's so true. And people are scared now to open up to somebody that they just met online. Everyone's jumping onto the hype of social media and they're so scared to actually open up to somebody. Where when you think about actually meeting somebody in real life, you get a feel for them, you get to understand their personality. And a lot of my clients are going through this at the moment. They're scared to show who they are. So they show a little bit of themselves and then they don't find anyone because they're only showing that little bit. And this is the dilemma that they're stuck in. So we encourage them to break out of that, to be more vulnerable, to open up to more opportunities. But it can be really scary now with the world we're living in.
About that vulnerability, Joe Stone, it's like you don't know somebody that you're meeting online. They may sound fine on, in the description or whatever they're presenting, and maybe they scrub the Google search on their name, or maybe it's a different name, or maybe they're like one of those terrifying movies where the guy turns out to be like a scammer. We've seen some of these love scams where they're just bilking lonely people out of hundreds of thousands of dollars. Is vulnerability a thing right now, like that people are missing?
I think Sonny's absolutely right. I think vulnerability is a huge problem because with social media, with the dating apps, everybody's trying to put their best foot forward. They're trying to be something. They're trying to look like somebody. They're trying to push this. Everybody has a personal brand, and it's hard to earn that vulnerability and show someone yourself soon enough when we're speed dating at all times. So you don't even spend the time that you need with me to peel back those layers before you're on to the next one. So I totally agree.
There's more to come, so don't go away.
It's almost unreasonable to expect that person to be that person in person.
Joe, do you think that we've just become an image-obsessed society?
I don't know. I think that's a big part of it, and I don't know how we get around it because now half the pictures you see online are a doctor, in some sort of way. If it's not the filter that the camera gives you, it's the filter that the app gives you. We found out like a year or two ago that TikTok was literally, even if you didn't have a filter on your pictures, was putting a filter on everything you uploaded, videos and pictures. So that was a major thing they literally had to roll back. And so you literally didn't know what a person looked like, even if they didn't apply anything themselves. And so now we're seeing that just play out across the board. When now social media platforms are rolling out AI versions and avatars where now you can create yourself in any environment and it really won't be you at all. And that's the new norm. It's almost unreasonable to expect that person to be that person in person. So that was funny. But
Yeah, right.
yeah, I think it is hard in dating and making it harder to really get to know people when you have to keep up these false pretenses. And like we keep talking about, it kind of all comes back to vulnerability because you need to actually get to know the other person.
Ling, what about that? Because people say that, but it's still women. You could have PhDs, you could have all kinds of degrees and awards and fame, and it still comes down to appearance. It's not enough to be mother of a newborn. You have to have a six-pack while you're there, feeding the baby to show off on social media. What about the pressure on women? Has that changed at all, or it's gotten more intense?
I believe that the pressure for women has actually intensified by a lot. I think it's always been pressure on women since the beginning in time, but now with social media, with, different celebrities out there that are always focusing on looks and solely looks, it's teaching everybody else to do the same thing. And it is carrying down into dating apps. And like Joe said, platforms. I uploaded a picture the other day and I was like, I didn't put this filter on it and there was no option to remove it. And I was like, what? So the fact that people are doing this, it's not great. And unfortunately, it's not even up to people anymore. Like Joe said, it's on apps. So it's like we have to figure out a different way. I think it's very important to also go on different dates. Maybe you're not wearing the makeup on one day, or maybe you're dressing down a little bit just to show a variety of what you actually look like and who you are as a person.
Right. Sonny, what about that?
Absolutely. I think at the start, it's important to show up as your best and to be presentable. Right now, there's so many options available that Joe was talking about. You can quickly meet somebody for coffee, and you're not really investing time into dating or getting to know somebody. So I tell them clients, even like actresses and actors, I advise them, you need to value your time before you go on that date. So I think it's catching it in the middle, not going all the way out to the best restaurants, looking your best, but going to somewhere where you're committed for a good couple of hours, looking good, And then rather than going for a quick coffee in your joggers, so you're looking presentable and you're really committing your time period to that date and getting to know somebody.
But the energy, do you believe there's a difference you can tell right away, Joe Stone, when if you meet somebody in person?
Oh, 100%, 100%. You can't go anywhere without the in-person thing. I think that, I mean, well, I'll say this. There are people who, they'll meet, I don't know, streaming, and then, they'll spend hundreds of hours on the phone together and maybe develop some type of super intimate relationship. And that does happen from time to time. I don't want to discount that, but I think, for the majority of people, you're going to have to meet that person and then also exactly see who they are and what they, who they are. So I think, and the thing is, there was a point in time where this was not as important because, like I said, you probably dated and married within your vicinity. So if you married, the guy you went to high school with, well, your parents know his parents. So you don't have to spend as much time knowing him because you know his grandma or your grandma know his grandma. It's a little bit different now because things are so disconnected. It's more important actually that we see people in person, that we not investigate their lives, but spend enough time getting to know them so we can find out if they are authentic. But if not, then, you're going to be, putting yourself in a bad situation, hoping that you can just figure it out based on text messages and, I don't know, voice notes.
Sonny, do you think that the in-person thing is important to really figure out who somebody is or decide if there's any kind of I still believe in chemistry, but I mean, I think that you can really only get that in person.
Absolutely. I had this client that was apparently dating somebody for 4 years and they never met once. And she asked me, shall I move on, Sonny? Absolutely. 4 years, you haven't met this person.
In person.
In person, she's never
But
met
they
him.
called it dating. They called it dating.
If you've not met in 4 years, there is no relationship there. You have to meet, you have to connect. The physical, intimate relationship, the difference between a relationship with friends and a relationship with your partner is intimacy, it's connection. And that's why it's so important to have that. And that only comes from meeting him face to face, feeling that connection between each other.
Joe Stone, I want to start with you on this. If you were single right now and you were going out, would you look them up online to see what you could find out about them?
I know I'm gonna surprise you with this one. Absolutely not. I think that is way too far. But I do think at the very least, I think that it's completely okay to check all public social media profiles. So if you meet someone on Tinder or whatever, you go to their Instagram, especially if they already put it whatever, their TikTok, YouTube. That's fair game. But I think in-depth research, paying the $9.99 to get, the look up on them, I think that's a little bit much for a first date.
Sonny, what about that? The researching, because there's so many aspects about this.
Yeah, so many aspects. And it needs to be limits on this because you can get carried away and go down the rabbit hole. And the reason why psychologically we are doing this is actually as safety. So we're looking to protect ourselves. We're making sure that we're going to be safe when we go on this date and meet this person. Sometimes if we try and be too cautious and trying to be too safe, we kill the chemistry. It absolutely ruins it because you have all the information about the person. You meet them and you're like, I know where you worked. I know where you went college. I know who your friends are. You have all the information. And then you say, well, there was no connection or there was no chemistry. Well, it's completely been ruined. However, on the other side, there are people that have been in relationships that do pretend that their marriage is over, yet they're just separated. And they're putting themselves out there because there's not enough vetting. There's not enough information. Even with the matchmaking clients, sometimes we have males more than females that join us. And I go, so are you divorced? Has everything gone through? No, it's been 2 months since we're separated. What, 2 months? Come back to me in about 2 years. Or we get them to finish their divorce, go through a healing, and then come out of it on the other side. So I think vetting is important, but please don't get too carried away.
Ling, was there one moment where you were like, okay, he's the one?
We did long distance for a little while. And so I knew when I wanted to FaceTime him from morning till night. That's how I knew that he was the one. And I loved him because I don't FaceTime with anybody. It's like just text. Like I don't want to even be on the phone. So when I did that with him all the time, I knew I was like, this is the guy and you just have such strong feelings of love that I've never had before when I dated people. So I knew that was it for me.
That's awesome. Joe, what about you?
We had like this after school thing where, not after school, but like a summer camp thing where we would all go to it when we were teenagers. I walked in one day. I hadn't seen her in like a couple of years. I literally walked in and I looked at her, and then I had a voice in my head literally say, "That's your wife." To this day, it was the clearest moment. I've never experienced that moment ever in my life. And then, like, we started talking probably like that night, and I told her she was my wife and that I was going to marry her. And, 10, 15 years later, I married her, and, I told her we was going to have a son, and we have a son. And I prophesied it our whole life together. And,
Wow. But then also too, it's like the relationship is making it last. That's the other piece of
mhm.
this too. It's like, what are some of the tips you can give people to make it last?
The thing that has kept us together, and I think you experience when you're in a long-term relationship, is you have to continually fall in love with the person that person chooses to become. And that is really what a marriage is. It is a guarantee that as you grow and I grow, I will choose to continue to love you, and I will have understanding for you, because we're going to go through life together, and you're the only other person I can truly count on. And it's easy to say that, but it's hard to do that because the action of it is painful, because there's certain parts of me that's going to grow in her too, that's going to change. That's not who I fell in love with.
Lynn, what about that? What's your take on that?
First of all, Joe, I was gonna say, are you like, maybe you're related to my husband? Because literally when he met me, he was like, "You're my wife," and I was like, "Bye, crazy."
No,
Like,
it happens.
Right.
Man knows.
Does that line
I,
work? How often does that line work for you?
so
100%.
I love that. But I would say my biggest thing I always tell people is that you have to like who you're with, or in this case, who you're married to, because you can love someone or have love for them, be there like occasionally, but when you like someone, I think that's what's going to keep you guys together through the times that you're like, man, I can't stand this person. Why am I with you? It's like, oh, because I like you. I'm willing to make this work. I always think it's very important to like who you're with, on top of loving them, liking them as well.
Sunny, what about you? Talk a lot in your writing and in your posting about that people before they start thinking about, I want the person that looks like this, that does this, that has this kind of lifestyle. What do we need to do first of all with ourselves?
In order for us to be able to attract and fulfill that long-term relationship, it's really important that we find that fulfillment within ourselves. Look at what we're proud of. Look at who we've become. Do things that actually light us up inside. And then you could bring that into the relationship to create that long-term loving relationship, as well as a success, as well as the other factors. But it's also bringing that right energy into the relationship, which is missing right now.
No, that's fantastic. Lynn, what about for women in particular? There's that constant thing to compare, but how do you break that mindset and just kind of get back to a place where you're happy with who you are and what you have?
So I think the first thing that's very important is to always remember that comparison is the thief of joy. So anytime you compare yourself to anyone, you're always just going to bum yourself out, for lack of better words.
Right.
Um, so I think it's always just remembering there's always going to be somebody prettier. There's always going to be somebody smarter. There's always going to be somebody with more money. But that doesn't take away from me. I'm still great. I still offer this. I still offer that. If you feel like you don't have things to offer, it's working on yourself. Like you said, it's not just about finding the one, it's what do you bring as well. So working on yourself, if you feel like, well, I don't have much to offer, really build up what you bring to the table, be confident in yourself, and you're just going to be an amazing addition to whoever you find eventually.
Joe, what about that? Because people have absolutely nothing, who have done absolutely nothing, and yet they have this list of, the list of this is what I want in my partner.
Yeah, you see, I think it's very hard, especially with what you see online these days, YouTube. The new hot thing is, the 20v1s, and you hear women talk about what they want out of a man, and it's six figures. He has to be 6'5". He has to, have tattoos, or he can't have tattoos. He needs to be, and these things, and you hear women talk about nonstop, and they are dead set on these things. You would believe that if you didn't have six figures and 6 feet, that no one on this planet would ever want you. So it's hard for men now as well. And so I think that hearing people be so vocal about what they want and these expectations that I'm not 6 foot, I never will be. So you can't meet them. It's hard on everybody, just like it is for men. And I know it's 10 times harder for women with the beauty standards as well on social media that they have to compete with. And so, yeah, it's hard to do that.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of Street Soldiers on Modern Love. You can watch it again and share it on our Fox 5 NY YouTube page and see many Street Soldiers episodes on the Fox Local app. Just click watch and you'll see our show playlist. Remember, use your mind as your best weapon. I'm Lisa Evers. Let's push for peace, love, and justice for all.